Fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream, good morning all and welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land on which this meeting is being held and pay my respect to the elders, past, present and emerging. Do we have any apologies, councillors? I'll take that as a no. The declaration of conflict of interest. Conflict of interest, including perceptions of conflict of interest. Please use this opportunity to make public any material personal interests and or conflicts of interest, real or perceived, in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and regulations. Councillors, do we have any conflicts to declare? Councillor Farinelli.
Mr Mayor, with regards to confidential report number 4, 2019 Reaper Road repairs and contracts, I believe I have a material personal interest in that my husband Paul is a casual employee of IMEC, one of the tenderers of that report. So I will be removing myself from the meeting from all discussions and voting, if that's okay.
Thanks, Councillor Farinelli. Councillor Millwood.
Through the Chair, Mr Mayor, I would like to declare a perceived conflict of interest in item 8.3 to do with the purchase of public state land by Stephen and Sue Valeriano.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Millwood. No further declarations, councillors? Okay, we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of July. Would somebody move that they were a true and accurate record, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? I'll take that as a no.
If I may, Mr Chairman, Councillor Millwood, could you give some detail? The Act requires that there's detail around the conflict of interest. Can you specify in what respect you have there may be a perception of a conflict?
Through the Chair, I think the perception may be that they are my relatives, that there could be some perception. Yep. I'd also like to ask maybe if Barry has a conflict of interest with that? No? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thanks for that intervention, CEO. Any business arising from the previous minutes? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, major projects. The Port Hinchinbrook Sewerage Solution. Mr Bradford will present this report, and I might add, this is Mr Bradford's first report in the Business Opportunities and Improvement Lead. Welcome, Mr Bradford.
Good morning, councillors. Good morning, Mr Mayor.
Morning, Mr Bradford.
This morning I'm bringing to Council an update on the Port Hinchinbrook Sewerage Solution, long-term solution. The Port Hinchinbrook Estate's been operating independently of the majority of council services since it was established back in 1996, and it's been under a conformed deed. The conformed deed has parties to it, the Passage Holdings as the major property owner in Port Hinchinbrook, the state government, the Commonwealth government and council, and that outlines the requirements and expectations from each of those parties. The sewage treatment plant has been operated by the Passage Holdings and their previous owners up until 2018, and also owned by the Passage Holdings. But after public reports of a serious failure to parts of the sewage treatment plant and the reticulation network, there was a need for council to engage with the following advice from the liquidator, and we needed to take some urgent remediation works in 2018. Since then, there was an interim funding agreement set up between the state government and council, the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation, to undertake some maintenance works on a short-term basis to keep that plant operating. So in 2019, part of that interim funding agreement was looking for a long-term solution for Port Hinchinbrook in the sewerage space. So in late 2019, Council supported a inquiry from the Department of State Development to engage Gandon engineers out of Cairns to undertake the development of a concept design for the upgrades of the sewage treatment plant at Port Hinchinbrook. So Council resolved in 2019, part of that to support that, and also within 1 month of receiving the final Gandon report, we would commence community engagement and relating to the potential acquisition of the existing sewage treatment plant from the liquidator. So the Gandon report has arrived, and it takes into account various needs of sewage treatment for the Port Hinchinbrook estate. That it looks at such things as the plant loading requirements, the environmental requirements, the site location, and the current state of the treatment plant. The concept design solution is designed to be able to be capable of servicing the current and future needs of the Port Hinchinbrook residents. The plant's designed in such a way that should Council consider to connect sewage to other parts of Cardwell in the future, we could do that without needing to do large-scale redevelopment of the sewage treatment plant. The Gandon design, concept design is for a treatment plant for up to 500 equivalent persons, or 500 EP. The current maximum load estimate from our operators is about 200 EP. The cost of the treatment plant is $6.7 million, is the estimate. This is absent of any costs relating to any acquisition of the land in the first place, also planning, environmental licensing and licensing costs as well. The report is also limited to the sewage treatment plant only, and does identify that the significant works need to be undertaken to parts of the reticulation network throughout the Port Hinchinbrook estate. Council estimates the cost of this works is around $2.36 million. So Council officers were consulted throughout the report, the development of the Gandon report, and had input into the final document. Since receiving the final document, Council officers have reviewed it and are comfortable that the solution is capable of delivering the sewage service for the Port Hinchinbrook estate. There was some reservations from officers, particularly in relation to that were raised in the Gandon report. It did note that there was a need for sourcing of some additional land for irrigation, which is part of the process post the sewage being treated as a disposal. Current modelling suggests that the current land use for irrigation is sufficient to cover for the current use or current demand on the sewage treatment plant. However, if the Port Hinchinbrook estate was to go further forward, there would be a need to source that land quite quickly. Council, we have, I believe we have some interest in being able to use alternate methods for irrigation disposal through third parties such as the golf course or in Cardwell or other agricultural areas for the disposal. But it is probably suffice for us to have that land available for us in times of wet weather events when those third parties might not require their full allocation. The part of the commitment from Council in the 2019 resolution was to commence community engagement. I'm proposing to commence this community engagement this month with connection directly with the property owners. So talk to the property owners directly, engaging with them, providing them some information about where Council's at with the sewage treatment plant and an update on some other matters as well. But also we need to provide an opportunity for the residents and any other concerned parties around Cardwell and even in the Cassowary Coast community that might want to contribute as well. So looking at doing a survey and information to those customers and be able to provide them an opportunity to either do it online or in hard copy form from our library. So just going back to the financial implications, so the current, a key matter I think is for Council to look at sourcing the funds externally. The sewage treatment plant and reticulation works total is around $9.1 million. I think the preferred option should be for council to be looking for those funds externally. The sewage treatment plant management agreement is due to expire at the end of this month as well. And with the current plant in very poor condition and at and there's in some danger of some of the parts of the plant collapsing if it's fully filled, one of the tanks. The resolution there in front of us, Council, is for just to reconfirm Council's commitment to facilitating a long-term solution for the ratepayers and residents of Port Hinchinbrook. Also to write to the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation, noting that we accept the Gandon report and render the project shovel-ready. Also, I think we need to note the specific concerns relating to the process to date, particularly around the sourcing of suitable land for the disposal by irrigation from the sewage treatment plant and the additional works that need to be undertaken to the critical infrastructure. We're requesting advice for the ongoing maintenance of the sewage treatment plant beyond the expiry of the current agreement, and also requesting advice from the state around the availability of further funding for the critical infrastructure outside of the sewage treatment plant. The current position of council, the recommendation is that the expenditure be sourced through appropriate mechanisms external to council, such as grants and other external funding sources, potentially special charges as well. I'm recommending that any consideration for funding be subject to a further council resolution, and also that we'll commence community engagement. I suppose just the last point is this is not committing to any funding at this stage from council. This is really only accepting the report to keep the process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Before I ask councillors to put some questions to the officer, I'd just like the CEO to speak around the issue at the top of page 17 in the background about the spillages that occurred and the reason council have been brought to the table with the state government to protect public health and to protect the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. The genesis of council's involvement with the plant involved the release of raw sewage, quite literally, onto the streets in the Port Hinchinbrook area. Council decided at that time that it had sufficient power with respect to the good governance of the whole of its area to move into that area to protect the residents from a potential a serious public health issue, and to avoid any possibility of sewage going into the Coral Sea. The state government then decided, after council's intervention, to provide funding for a year of some rectification works in the sewage treatment plant and the continuing operation of that sewage treatment plant. A long-term solution wasn't achieved within that first 12 months, so the state very graciously provided a further funding source such that the plant could be operated through until now, essentially. However, that, as Mr. Bradford points out, that funding agreement will determine shortly, and council obviously would not, in the short term, abandon the operation of that plant. By accepting this resolution, Mr. Chairman, it puts council in a position where it can take the next step. However, as Mr. Bradford quite rightly points out, any further steps will be subject to resolution and will be post the consultation period.
Thanks, Mr. Scott. Councillors, I want to draw your attention to, in particular, in the recommendation 2A, on accepting the Gandon report, that will render the project shovel-ready. That is critical in attracting state and federal funding. You've got to have a project that is shovel-ready, and that's why the Gandon report was critical in the whole process of addressing this environmental and public health issue. Over to you, councillors. Do you have any questions for Mr. Bradford?
Yes, through the chairman. Mr. Bradford, I know the Grandin report. I've been through it, but what is not mentioned, we'll have to have the land in the council's name right beside the current treatment plant, because we can't shut the current treatment plant down while we're building the new one, and state government will not give us money to build something on someone else's land. That's correct?
Through the chair, yeah, the property will have to be in council's name. There'll be a process. I'm not totally sure of the construction process, but there would be a process of it being constructed on that land, and then it being changed over as appropriate. I would assume. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Bradford. Any councillor?
One further from me. We know some of the landholders in the estate at Hinchinbrook are interstate, so they'll also have the opportunity to be involved in the consultation process, and which will obviously be done online and through that arena. Yeah.
Through the chair, the consultation process. So I'm proposing to prepare the consultation documents and send them and mail that directly to those property owners in particular, and the rest of the community be able to access the information either online or through our library.
Any further questions for Mr. Bradford, CEO?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that consultation process will include liaison between council and the state government, and I think that it's worthwhile recognising how much work and how much effort the state government has put into this over several years now. It would be inappropriate for me to name officers from the state government, but quite frankly, they have worked tirelessly to get to this point, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Farinelli.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just seeking just a little bit of clarity. So the sewage treatment plant in Cardwell, as it stands at the moment, is not on our books. It is on our books? No, it's not on our books. But what we are proposing is that the future sewage treatment plan would be on our books. Is that correct? So we would actually own, and that would become part of our assets.
So this resolution is purely just accepting that the Gannon report has a sewage design that could deliver a Port Hinchinbrook solution.
Yep.
If we are going to consider running that sewage treatment plant as a council service, it would be funded through a utility charge for the ratepayers that are utilising that service. And at that stage, yes, it would be a council asset if that was to be the case.
Just wanted to just clarify that. Thank you.
Further to that, the application for any funding has got to include all the infrastructure and the adjoining land that we require for the project. Is that correct?
That's what we're requesting that in the letter, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Any further questions for Mr. Bradford? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bradford. We move on to Community and Culture, 4.1, Library and Customer Service Report. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, and good morning to you all.
Morning, Ms. Williams.
So I'm presenting the Libraries and Customer Service Report today. And today for libraries, I'm going to talk about the value of libraries. So while I can report on statistics every month, they really only cover the traditional services of libraries, and they don't really convey the community hub nature of libraries, which has been clearly demonstrated during our closure period. So there's social connection, improved community health and career opportunities, just to name a couple there. So earlier this year, Public Libraries South Australia published a report titled The Value of Public Libraries in South Australia, and that report quantifies the benefits and the value of libraries. So they employed cost-benefit analysis to calculate the net value of public libraries, and the results showed that for every dollar invested in public libraries, $2.80 of benefits were generated for the community. So while Cassowary Coast Libraries have done quite so extensive research, we can quantify some of the value. We have, for our collection, we have analysis software that generates reports for moving items around our different branches. So if they're not being borrowed in one branch, they get sent on to the next. And last financial year, we transferred 3,059 items, and that resulted in an extra 8,817 loans and generated a monetary value of around nearly $54,000. So it's getting value out of the cost of your books. Also in the last financial year, we had, through all of our branches, we had 179,000 plus visitors. We had nearly 155,000 loans and 20,800 sessions on public computers. So closure during the pandemic meant a vital loss of services to the community, particularly those access to PCs and printing services, and that has a big impact on some of the most vulnerable community members. So these figures clearly demonstrate the value of our service. I can also report that we're on the way back. So since reopening in May, we've had 209 new members, and a 25% increase in people through the door from a week in July to last week, so just a comparative week. So things are looking up, which is great. We had a new initiative called the Next Chapter Book Club, which was launched on the 29th of July. This was a program that was ready to go pre-pandemic, but we had to put it on hold. And it's a reading club for people with intellectual disabilities. We've just completed our third week of that. The participants are very excited and happy to come back each week. And I would like to thank the Mayor and all the councillors for attending and supporting this initiative. Now I'll just move on to the customer service report. So the key points for customer service for July, that they've experienced a steady increase in the number of customer inquiries and requests, and quite a bit of that is to do with the dog registrations. And there is some reports that the community are very pleased with the, just need to find my note here. For the free registration for pensioners for their first D-sex dog. So there's been some positive feedback on that. And also just recently all customer service and library staff completed training that provided valuable strategies for dealing with difficult customers. I myself have completed several of these training sessions in the past, and I can say that it's always great to learn new strategies and reinforce the things that you're already doing. And that is the conclusion of my report there.
Thank you, Ms Williams. That was very well received, the book club launch. The joy on the faces of the participants in particular was heartwarming, and I noted that the best reader in the group was a pretty good reader, and he struggled with one word, evicted. And the gentleman who had the most struggle in the reading, he could not read, he told us. He explained to that other participant, when you get evicted, that's when you don't pay your rent and get booted out. Yeah, so they're learning from their reading, there's no doubt about
fantastic.
it.
Yeah.
Any questions for the officer? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to also say that it was a very enjoyable day attending the very first Next Chapter Book Club, and I've also done the facilitator training so that I can participate in further of those meetings. It was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Cherry.
So through the chair, just confirming what everybody has said in the room. I think everybody that was there had a great time. I've also completed the facilitating process, and I believe Councillor Purban has too. So I know Mr. Councillor Farinelli was very keen to do so. So you'll be seeing more of us in the libraries around the area. So congratulations on such a wonderful scheme. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just add that we are about to launch in Tully Library as well. We've got a few participants willing to come along.
Okay. Any further questions for Ms Williams? If somebody move item 4.1, moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Farinelli, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we move on now to item 4.2. You want to present that report, please?
Thank you. Yes, so this is a update to the library's public internet use policy. essentially, it's a policy that just sets out the rules and regulations around using our public services there. In addition to this policy is the added Wi-Fi use that people can access in our libraries that previously wasn't mentioned in the policy. And so the purpose of the policy really is to ensure the use of public internet computing and Wi-Fi is consistent with library policies and national and state guidelines. So the recommendation is that the library's public internet use policy be adopted.
Any questions for the officer? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I just wondered if all the computers at the library are back working again since COVID.
Not as yet, due to the 1.5 distancing rule. So I know Mission Beach Library has been able to sort of spread their computers out a little bit and we're able to get one more in operation. We are monitoring it, so I've asked the staff to let me know if we're ending up with queues of people. But at this stage, we are managing with the lesser amount of computers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms Williams. Any further questions for the officer? If not, somebody move. Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Williams. We move on now to 5, Economic Activation and Tourism. 5.1, the Tourism Services Monthly Report, and this will be presented by Mr Blanchett, our Tourism Coordinator. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors.
Morning.
Well, thank you. And a quick report of tourism delivery for the month of July. Very interesting times. Obviously, COVID is still impacting visitation across Australia, let alone the Cassowary Coast. I guess in summary for Cassowary Coast, it's an important time to be agile and to collaborate, and we need our full team of 30,000 Cassowary Coast locals to help us get through this time. Some of the activity in regards to recovery, there's been some good use by the comms team, the council comms team, with the use of the 102 things to do. So you may have noticed that there's a weekly feature of that to inspire our community. Also importantly is our collaboration with the tourism industry through TCT. And they're certainly activating through their networks, which takes the Cassowary Coast nationally out to Australia. So I believe they'll have more news on campaigns very soon in the future in regard to their activity to help us get through COVID. The team have been very active in talking to local businesses in hospitality, tours and accommodation, and there's a summary of some of the feedback from around the region in the report. A couple of points of note that they've advised us is 2 things. Bookings are tending to be very last minute, so it's very hard to forecast what sort of business you're going to have, predominantly because the business we're getting is mainly from Cairns and Townsville within the region, which has been the target market. The second thing is it's very hard for them to plan long-term and forecast for their businesses with the goalpost moving, if you like, with the borders suddenly being impacted again. For our destination, we have the benefit of being the holiday go-to for 2 big cities next door to us. We have a lot of open spaces, and so those are the markets that I understand TCT will keep targeting, and that makes sense to us. A quick summary, I've just put a summary in the report of recent calls to business to see how they're going since we started talking to them in March. Of the businesses we contacted, 93% of them are open and operating. As recent as yesterday, another local tour operator promoted they're open for business again, so this figure's changing every day. But there's a summary across our main hubs of who's actually open and active. We've started a bit on the Ecotourism Australia certification, so we have to do a bit of prep before we dive in very deep there, but we've already started what's called a tourism experience audit. So I use that as an example. While we're after eco certification, a tourism experience audit will be very handy in other areas and aspects of Cassowary Coast destination. And skipping through a couple of highlights of the report, local events. We had a presentation from Mark Olsen at TTNQ recently, and in that presentation he made a point of emphasising events will be a big part of recovery for tourism in the region. So I've just noted events in this report that are on the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, and the point of note there is it won't encompass all our local events that are happening, but these events on the Tourism Data Warehouse actually take our destination, take the Cassowary Coast to they throw the net wider. And some events may not be on there, that's fine, but these events help our destination because they show there's more things to do and they add to our appeal. Skipping down to the Cardwell mountain bike project, this is progressing well. Just wanted to highlight we've had some very good engagement with traditional owners recently. We were invited to Jumbin for a day at Jumbin with the Girame community and the wider community there, and received extremely well. The mountain biking project was obviously part of the presentation, but this project opened up the opportunity for an update from Jumbin on their plans and visions and wanting to work more with council. So we've had a sort of side benefit from that engagement there. And as recently as the weekend, the Girame board invited us to present the project and discuss it with their board, and for the purpose of getting their direction and how they would like to participate and be involved with the project. So following that board meeting, which the project was received extremely well, and we had in attendance Nigel Hedgecock from the Queensland Government representing tourism special projects. So there's a few other quick things. There's a lot of industry support via webinars happening for our local businesses and operators to fuel information on what's happening in tourism, but also tools to help them get through the challenges and be agile. Our LTO and industry have clearly indicated the essential need of JobKeeper support continuing. That's been a topic in the media for JobKeeper, but our local businesses have also emphasised the essential need of that to get through to the next season next year. The visitor information centres, so it's been, it hasn't been a full winter season like we normally get, but it's been fairly steady. So particularly in the mornings, and most of the activity is coming from Cairns and Townsville. The events that have been on recently in the area tend to be busy. I know Cardwell last Saturday night, the state representative to the mountain bike meeting couldn't book a room Saturday night in Cardwell, which is an example of what I was referring to earlier with the events helping the region. So that's a quick summary of the month of July.
Thank you, Mr Blanchett. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Mr Blanchett, just regarding the local events, how, those ones that are listed, how do other events become listed, or can they, or should they?
Absolutely. Through the chair, it's free to list on Australian Tourism Data Warehouse for markets and events, so we certainly encourage them to do so, and we offer assistance to do so. So if any local market or event wants to help the destination and get featured, let us know. Come to a local visitor information centre or contact us.
Could, through you, Mr Mayor, could that be shared through our comms team to different groups or something like some sort of facility? Because it's just to make people more aware that that facility, you know, we're offering that help.
Yeah, Councillor Chewy, I'm sure Mr CEO will take that back to our comms department, and it's something they could facilitate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions for Mr Blanchett? Just a comment about events, and we had the presentation the other day from TCT and TTNQ, and they've said we've got the borders closed, the Queensland bubble, and we've got to do what we can to get the best out of it. Tough times, look outside the square. Just want to put a challenge out to you, Mr Blanchett. We currently hold the world record for the longest banana split in Cassowary Coast, so world records can happen if we have a go. We've got to have a go. It costs you about $8,000 to get World Guinness Book record judge up here into Cassowary Coast to do the judging of any event. I know a lot of RVs are on the roads and they're trapped in Queensland. They're in the bubble. I'd like to put the challenge that we have a go at the world record for the most number of RVs in a region. They're here. If we engage them, and I think even if we fail to break the record, what would happen to our economy and the morale for our community would be a good outcome. So there's my challenge. I'd like you to take that back to TCT and TTNQ. Let's exploit what we can out of the Queensland bubble and see if we can have a crack at a world record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the challenge. We take that on note, and we will reply in time with a bit of planning and teamwork. I think it's a fair challenge to take on.
It's a big challenge, that's for sure. That's what it's all about. COVID brings opportunities, and this could be one if we have a go.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, certainly appreciate that, and it's that agility, creativity that we're seeing in a lot of our local community businesses, and that's what will get us through.
Okay. Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I think that's a great idea, because then there would be ongoing competition that maybe next year more will want to come up to try and break the record. So I think that encourages the more RVs to get on board if we don't meet the challenge.
Yeah, good point, Councillor Millwood. We do have Christmas in July, so they are activating around their communities in the far north now. If we had a world record crack in August, straight off the Christmas in July, when they're all here, it would activate the community, it would be good for our morale, and it would definitely help our economy, no doubt about it. One other thing I'd like to highlight, we had a meeting recently with the Mamu board about Hadrill Park. There are some traditional owner issues with it, no hurdles at all, but one of the very interesting proposals is that they'd like to have a stall at the Hadrill Park markets going forward for bush tucker and Aboriginal artefacts. Now, our Governance Officer, Ms Johnson, is going to attend the next board meeting to formalise this approach, yeah, it'll be great for the RVs that are going to be parking in Hadrill Park, but it'll be even greater for our locals that they'd be able to access a stall on the edge of the road that'll have bush tucker. Because we all talk about it, but how do you source it? Nobody's really putting it out there to make it available to the wider community, and the Mamu board are keen to go forward with this proposal. We'll see what Ms Johnson brings back after she attends their board meeting. She was invited to attend and she's accepted, and we should have more to report on that in a month's time. Okay. Councillor Farinelli.
Mr Mayor, just in reference to the great work that's been done, and I think that was initiated by Councillor Chewy with the Instagram frame at Mission Beach, that's going to sort of help. We live in a world of social media now, and everyone loves to have their photos, selfies done, and Mission Beach is leading the way there with their Instagram frame. At the recent TCT board meeting, I actually proposed that we take Councillor Chewy's lead and look at installing a frame in the other centres across the region, one on the Johnston River in Innisfail, and I'll be looking to approach some community groups that may be interested in that. Another one of the board members at TCT is going to approach Cardwell Chamber of Commerce, and possibly Councillor Millwood, I've spoken to her about Tully. I think it's just really, we have to embrace social media. For some people, they're still catching up with social media, but it is out there, and it is a great way to have our profile lifted across the world, not just within, eventually it'll feed out into the world with Instagram, but I think it's a really great initiative that I know Councillor Chewy started, and with her permission, I'd love that opportunity to sort of try to get that out across the region, just to, if we've got people coming into the area, go and have your photo taken at all 4 Instagram frames in the region. It's just a great way of promoting the whole region, and what each of our different areas have that are special to their areas, and just get that out to the Australia and the world.
Thanks, Councillor Farinelli. I'd just like to refer that matter to the CEO in terms of operational and activation. Have you got a vehicle that could make that happen?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I have to I have to admit an absolute dearth of knowledge in respect of what an Instagram frame is, much less Instagram, and I've never been on it, but we can certainly work on it.
Can I just say, it's actually a community-led initiative. It's not actually a council, from my understanding. I think council has assisted possibly in the design of the frame, if I'm correct. But the actual program that Councillor Chewy, I think, helped get started was actually a community-led initiative. So the funding did not come from council in the actual preparation. But Councillor Chewy, are you happy to?
Yeah,
if
certainly.
that's okay, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Farinelli. Yeah, this was a project that in my other life as a hairdresser, I was talking to the Lions Club of Mission Beach, and they wanted a project that would embrace the community. So I went down the Instagram road, and they have embraced it, and they're working closely with Mr. Byron Jones, and they have got a frame set to go in at the Village Green there at Mission Beach, which will all fit in with the eventual master plan project as well. I attended the Curramine Beach Community Association, and they too are getting an Instagram frame completely on their own. They're doing it. So I had to explain to them about hashtag Curramine Beach as well. But yes, as Councillor Farinelli says, it could be a challenge, to go and have tag yourself in the framed photos in the Cassowary Coast. I think, we need to embrace the Instagram social media phenomenon that is happening, whether we like it or not, Mr. Gott.
Well said, Councillor Chewy. Over to you, Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring a point up that's quite relevant, and you raised the bubble earlier on, the Queensland bubble, because there's a lot of misconceptions getting around within the community. They see an interstate number plate, people start panicking, carrying on. There's been some aggression towards some of the tourists. I've been talking to a few of the interstaters that have actually got into Queensland on the bubble, went through an entire process that was very rigid, very strong. They're here, and I think we need to embrace these tourists that have come from interstate, are in the bubble. We know they're safe. They're spending money. A couple of them actually said to me, "What's Cassowary Coast like at Christmas? Because don't think we can get home. We're going to be here for a few more months." So I mean, again, it's money coming in, and if we attempt or have a go at the world record for RVs, we need to embrace that. These people have all been vetted. They're all safe. They haven't snuck across borders. The gentleman I was talking to crossed at a very small crossing out in the West Country. There was 500 caravans there, and it took them 3 weeks to all get vetted through. But they're all here. They're all safe. So please don't think these people have snuck in and they're breaking the rules. They're here and they're spending their money with us in Queensland. It's a very important thing for us to support.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Very positive comment, and it's all about opportunity. COVID has delivered opportunity. This is one staring us right in the face. How we get into it and make our economy stronger is the vehicle we're looking for. But another community did set the current world record for the most number of RVs. It can be done. So, Mr. Blanchett, it's on your shoulders, mate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Farinelli.
I think it's a wonderful idea, the most RVs in the region. I think the greatest challenge for our staff and for the relative business owners is to make sure we've got the capacity as a region to hold the relevant number to break the record. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of work around that. Mr. Blanchett's probably sweating and wiping the sweat from his brow. But great idea, but I imagine there will be a lot of work, and we just need to make sure that the capacity is there because we want as many of them coming to this region as possible.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we love a challenge, and but I think the Mayor understands there's a lot of side benefits to this. Just the attitude, the social positive to give it a go, the belief, and of course the awareness, the attention it will raise. And if I can just add with the Instagrams and the hashtagging is critical. Because they can elevate hotspots. So we all know little areas that we have a hotspot of visitation, like the Gumboot down the road, and they present opportunities when they're there for taking their brag shots to actually align a bit of our branding behind them. So, and Mr. Mayor, if I can respond to Councillor Baines, Just really, really good point you mentioned. There's a saying in tourism that people don't remember the product they bought, they remember the experience you gave them. So every single visitor here, if they wanted to be here or if they're caught here in the bubble, they're an opportunity to be ambassadors for the Cassowary Coast, depending on how we treat them. So,
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, just while we're on the RV thing, I'd just like to ask council if they have the appetite to extend the RV stay at our current location in Tully from, is it 72 hours at present?
48 hours currently.
So can we extend that maybe to a week? The longer we've got them here, the more money they spend. We'd like them to stay a little bit longer.
CEO.
Yeah, through Mr Chairman, we might take that offline with council's approval and examine our suite of policies and so on. Mr Sadler's at the back of the room nodding his head, so perhaps if we can come back to council in respect to that proposition.
Moved by Councillor Farinelli, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Blanchett.
Mr Chair. Morning. Thank you.
We now move on to Governance, Environment and Finance and 6.1, the Quarterly Progress Review. Ms Kerr will present this report. Morning.
Good morning. This is the final quarterly plan report for the 2019-20 year before you. Is this close enough? Sorry. As you can see, we have 93 KPIs on track, 18 on watch and 2 for review. So if anyone has any questions.
Any questions for the officer on that report? No questions? Would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr Chair, and I know we've gone through this motion, but I was just going to comment that it's great to see in our operational plan the amount of green lights that are ticked off and how well we're progressing. And the beauty of the work that Ms Kerr does is that she doesn't get many questions asked about it because the councillors are so happy with the report and how well it is done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Kerr. We move on to 6.2, the extension of appointment of independent members on the Audit Committee, and Mr Singh will present this report.
Good morning all.
Morning.
Just in front of us is a report on the extension of appointment of independent audit committee members. Councillors, in accordance with section 105 of the Local Government Act, Council is required to establish and maintain an audit committee comprising of up to 5 members. At the moment we have 2 councillors and 2 independent members on the committee, and the 2 independent members were actually appointed on the 25th of August 2016. And for the first member, who is Mark Andrzejek, he's the chair. He has been on the committee for 4 years. What we are proposing to council is to extend his appointment for another 4 years, based on the advice and feedback we have received from council staff, our external and internal auditors, and also based on the self-assessment that is being undertaken by the audit committee. And for the second member, councillors, Mr. Greg Archer, he has been on the committee for more than 6 years, so potentially I think he's coming to his 8th year. So what we are proposing for Mr. Archer is to extend his appointment for another 12 months, with the view that going forward, council potentially around the end of this year consider succession planning and go out to the market and look for another independent member. So under the charter and also under the Act, I think one of the requirements is that one of the audit committee member must have significant experience and skill in financial matters, and councillors at the moment we have both who have that. So potentially I think there's an opportunity for us to bring in an additional skill set on the board. So however, based on the recommendation today, what we are proposing is extension for both. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Any questions for Mr Singh on that recommendation? If there is not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Singh. 6.3, the policy review. and this report will be delivered by Ms Johnson.
Mr Mayor, councillors.
Morning, Ms Johnson.
Councillors, as a matter of good governance, council is required to review policy and procedures and ensure council functions in a manner consistent with changing trends. The proposed policy before council seeks to provide greater clarity and guidance in the manner in which council laws utilise general business agenda item. In particular, the general business should not be used to pass resolutions that would otherwise require a report from a council officer and may result in resolution requiring expenditure of council funds. This also ensures greater transparency to the public, and only those matters that are referred to in the public advertised agenda will be considered at any council, general or special meeting. The policy also recognises the ability of council laws to move motion at a general meeting. I suppose, in terms of previous workshops that we've had with council laws, it's become quite apparent that there are very few local governments within Queensland that have general business on their agenda. Where they do have it on the agenda, there are very clear guidelines in the manner in which it should be utilised. And so having regard to that, at present, Council's general business doesn't provide any real clarity or guidelines in the manner in which it should be used. This policy provides, it has updated it to provide for that.
Is that it? Yep. Any questions for the officer on that recommendation? We have workshopped this, and 7 councillors spoke very strongly about our democratic right to retain general business, but we heard what Ms Johnson said about putting some guidelines around it, and after an extensive discussion, I felt we'd left the room that that's the way we want to go, and it's reflected in the recommendation today. So we're upholding democracy. We're making sure that our ratepayers can come to us and still have an issue heard at the last minute through general business, even though it's not on the agenda. We have an avenue to have it heard and discussed, and maybe even some action taken on a matter. So for those reasons alone, I strongly support today's recommendation. Would somebody move it, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Johnson. Item 6.4. Yep. Turn the air conditioning down. Yeah. No worries. Item 6.4, the reviewed councillor portfolios, and over to you, Mr Gott.
Yeah, with your permission, Mr Chairman, Councillor Millwood has for some time been working through issues associated with that which was previously her portfolio, which was organisational cultural development, and with your permission, Councillor Millwood, speaking on your behalf, has formed the view that her particular skill set and her interests would be better directed towards a new portfolio, which we've described as waste management and waste management innovation. The Appendix A to the report fleshes out those areas which would become relevant within that portfolio, Mr Chairman, and it's my proposal that Council maintains its current portfolio system but removes the organisational cultural development aspect from Councillor Millwood's portfolio and replaces it with waste management and waste management innovation. As a note to the report, I propose that organisational cultural development be entrapped within Councillor Bain's portfolio within governance, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Gott. Any questions for the CEO on this recommendation? Councillor Barnes.
I'm in favour of this, but I'm just going to ask Councillor Millwood, what do you find the problem with the portfolio of organisational cultural development? Is it a nothing program or is it a problem program?
Through you, Mr Chairman, I think your microphone needs to be turned on.
Sorry, Mr Chairman. I was just going to ask Councillor Millwood, what is the main problem with this portfolio, organisational cultural development? What's the main problem with it?
The main problem with that, Councillor Barnes, is that most of the portfolio going towards cultural development and is all in the operational part of the council, and I feel that there was too many limitations and for me to be involved with the portfolio. Yep.
Councillor Farinelli.
Can I just add to something there, Mr Mayor, in response through you to Councillor Barnes? I think it's really hard when you come into a council and you've never done the job before, and understanding limitations around what you can do as a councillor, let's put it simply, and what you can't. I sat with Councillor Millwood and in consultation with staff over what this portfolio looked like, and also what she could do as a result of the portfolio. I had some serious concerns over crossing over her role as a councillor and crossing over into operational areas. Even the business cards that were provided to her showed workplace health and safety, and there were some real limitations in how she could actually get involved in that without being seen to cross over into operational areas of council. So I still have concerns whether organisational culture development should be a role held by a councillor. Myself, I personally believe, and this is just my opinion, that it is the role of our staff. And I still struggle to see where it fits in a councillor's portfolio, but I guess that'll be up to Councillor Baines, and he's been here before, so he will understand definitely the requirements he has and the restrictions he has as a councillor, and I'm sure he won't let himself cross over into any areas he's not meant to be in.
Councillor Baines.
In answer to that, no, I don't. I agree with you, Councillor Farinelli, that no, I wouldn't step into any operational area. I do believe that organisational cultural development has got a great strategic piece that fits within the organisation, and if we're eyes on the horizon, council laws can very strategically be placed to work in that arena, and I think it's up to all of us to work in that arena. Further to that, though, I'd like to talk through the chairman, and I'd like to move that the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation this morning be rejected. And the reason to which I rely upon is that I hold the view that the organisational cultural development within the governance portfolio specifically does not reflect ideal executive best fit. So rather, I would move that the portfolios be established through you, Mr Chair, major projects, Councillor Nolan, Planning and Regional Development, Councillor Pervin, Economic Development and Tourism, Councillor Farinelli, Governance, Environment and Finance, Councillor Baines, Community and Cultural, Organisational Cultural Development and Sustainability, Councillor Chewy. I think Asset Sustainability, Councillor Barnes, Waste Management and Waste Management Innovation, Councillor Millwood. I can provide a copy of this, Mr Mayor, and I further move that Annexure A, which is attached to the report, reflects these recommendations that I've been put forward to this resolution. So, Mr Mayor, I would move that motion be accepted by the council orders.
Yeah, just on advice from the CEO, we need to first reject the current recommendation.
Done.
And then move the second recommendation, which captures what you're proposing today.
So, thank you, Mr Chair. So further to that, Mr Chairman, I move that the Chief Executive's Officer's recommendation be rejected.
Seconded, please. Seconded by Councillor Barnes. Any further comment, councillors? Councillor Farinelli.
I'm not feeling comfortable at all with the fact this has come out of left field. I really would like someone. Can you please repeat your proposal?
Well, before I repeat the proposal, we're going to deal with the vote on the table, or
Well,
through you,
I
Mr.
think
Chair?
Councillor Farinelli wants background why it's been rejected.
Okay.
If you could just fill that gap, please.
So can I go to the reasoning, Councillor Farinelli?
Yep.
The reason upon which I rely is that I hold the view that the organisation, that including organisational cultural development within the governance portfolio, does not reflect an ideal executive best fit.
Okay. Any further?
Yeah.
Councillor Farinelli?
Has Councillor Chewy been consulted with what her requirements with this addition to her portfolio would entail? Because it basically, everything I've just said and how we've got a new councillor who struggled with where she believed she sat within that portfolio, and I sat in on many meetings with relevant staff who were unable to, at the time, provide us with clear direction of what that part of the portfolio would mean and where she would actually be able to go with it. Have you been given contrary information that makes you feel comfortable that you will be able to conduct yourself with that in your portfolio?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Farrelly, in response, I'm having a meeting with Mr. Crosby on Monday. I feel this is not going to be my only portfolio, as it was for Councillor Millwood, so I understand that that might have been a difficult thing because she felt limited in what she could do. But I'm happy with where it sits. And I'll talk to Mr. Crosby. If I have any difficulty in the role, then I will come back to Council and express difficulty.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Farinelli.
Wouldn't it make sense then that we defer this and make sure that the information, everyone is comfortable with the information before we go voting on something, or we're going to be revisiting this again in a matter of time? This to me, I feel like I don't feel comfortable. But anyway, continue on.
Okay, any further comments on the first recommendation to reject the CEO's report? If not, put it to the vote. All in favour? It's carried. Against? Carried 5-2. Thank you. Please note that Councillor Farinelli and Councillor Millwood voted against the first recommendation. Second recommendation?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering if it's Councillor Farinelli's proposition that the resolution, which I believe Councillor Baines is about to put, be deferred. So it would seem to me to be reasonable to put that proposition before the actual intended resolution from Councillor Baines is put. With your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, good pick up, Mr. CEO. Given the concerns and the vote that we've just seen, two councillors clearly have issues. We need to have a council information session and make sure that the new portfolio that Councillor Chewy is going to be managing, she knows the guidelines around strategic and operational and doesn't cross that line. So how do you feel, councillors? Defer?
Through the chair?
Yes.
I don't feel that two councillors have issues on this. I just feel like this has not been explained or brought to our attention before this meeting, and I think that we need to actually sit down and discuss it. Thank you. Okay.
Would somebody move that the second recommendation be deferred till we have a workshop? Councillor Farinelli moves, Councillor Millwood second. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I am happy to defer this on.
Thanks, Councillor Baines.
Just wanted to go back. It's an opinion piece that Councillor Farinelli's raised today. If we deal with these opinions, I will be bringing this recommendation forward at a later meeting.
Councillor Chewy.
I'm just a little confused as now. Has Councillor Millwood, has she now got a new portfolio, or are we still in limbo?
No, we're going to go back to a council information session and fill that gap.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on now to asset sustainability and item 7.1, the Tully multi-use sporting complex, and Mr. Fisher's here to do this report. Welcome, Mr. Fisher.
Welcome. Good morning, councillors and staff.
Morning, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you for the opportunity to present an update on the Tully Multi-Sporting Complex and Grandstand project. Project is very, very close to completion. We anticipate that we may have handover of the facility on tomorrow, Friday. It's obviously subject to a few things falling into place, but the contractor is busily working to address a few issues that we had a defect inspection during the week, and there'll probably be a few smaller things to tidy up in the next week or two as well. So, projects on track for construction. Wise financially, project is tracking well as well, which is a good thing on any building project. I guess one thing that I would note in the risks section there regarding an official opening, we're having consultation with the federal government. We've suggested a couple of dates in September for an official opening, and we are waiting to hear back from them. Advice from the state government is that they will do their best to work with the federal government's nominated timeframes. There is 3 rugby league games proposed between August and October. These games aren't an official opening of the facility. They would stand to represent the first use of the facility, but I just make it very clear that it isn't an official opening event. Happy to take any questions on the project through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I haven't got a question. I'd just like to say that Mr. Goodman kindly took myself and a few user groups through there yesterday, and they were mighty impressed. They're so excited. They're trying to find events to have so they can use it. So, yeah, everybody's pretty happy with it.
Any further questions for Mr. Fisher? I'd just like to make a comment about community feedback over the last week. Councillor Barnes and I have been in the community of Tully on a couple of occasions, and we've taken the opportunity to gauge the feeling about the naming of the grandstand. I've got a report, overwhelmingly, well-respected people in this town have said we definitely want Tully grandstand. Some even applied a bit of state of origin flavour to it. Innisfail's got a Pease Park. We want Tully grandstand. They've taken ownership of it, and I just want to report. I know it's a hot issue when you're naming things like, Victory Creek Bridge, the dramas we had there. So the feedback from well-renowned people in this town said definitely Tully grandstand. So it'll be interesting to see when the survey comes in if that measures up. But face-to-face on the ground, long-term residents of Tully made it very clear. Councillor Barnes, have I got that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the first thing. I want to ask Councillor Millwood a question. It's very exciting having 3 football games, but this town is known for its big gumboot. Now, I challenged you a couple of months ago to put up some money and get some trophies ready. They're being made? What's the prize money? Could you report on the prize?
Prize money?
Yeah. It's a dash for cash, mate. You've got to put some money up.
And night's accommodation at the caravan park.
No, there isn't one there yet. There will be soon.
So it's going to be a male and a female competition,
Yep.
and we can't break a world record, Guinness Book record. But what's in it for the participants? What have you got in mind?
Well, I'll have to work on that one, Mr. Mayor, or you put me on the spot. I've got the trophies ready, but I haven't thought of the prize.
Well, if you put up the cash, I'll match it. Dollar for dollar. I'm putting a chart. You're the divisional councillor.
Yeah.
You put up the cash and I'll match it.
All right.
And that'll go to the people that throw the gumboot the longest. I don't think it should just be about football. It's a community grandstand.
Yep.
And this town is known for the golden gumboot. So I'm putting up some dollars to match you and get some trophies for that event, not the football game.
I also have consulted quite a few people within the community, and they are also in favour of Tully grandstand, and most of them are in agreement, and they are quite happy with the plaque that we're going to have installed about Percy Pease. And yeah, I think that's all positive all the way along. Thank you.
That's great news. Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to express a little confusion. I believe that Mr. Fisher referred to rugby league matches, and now you're referring to football, so I can't understand.
I apologise for the offence to somebody who plays that other game. But anyway, any further questions for Mr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I
Councillor
agree
Barnes.
with all the previous speakers. I'd just like to assure the council and the general public that the rugby league games taking place, the next 3 are all COVID friendly. They've dealt with the right authorities, being driven by Queensland Rugby League, the local police and the district police and health. So a lot of work's gone into it. So if there's any reservations, let me assure you we're all on track. Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of COVID and the restrictions, Councillor Barnes, can you just give us a summary about the discussions you've had with Tully Police about the expectation in the community about getting a seat on the first event in the new grandstand, and it's not going to happen for a lot of people, how this has got to be managed very carefully, because it's going to be under the scrutiny of the media, and we need to be very careful how we allow access to that brand new grandstand for the first event.
Well, thank you for nothing, Mr. Mayor, but this is the subject we were trying to dodge. We've got a 660 beautiful seated grandstand. The police and the health authorities are only going to allow like a 50% participation. I feel for the president of the rugby league and the users groups of how that 300 are going to be sifted through. He's going through the process now. It could be an online purchase, or I just can't answer that question fully because I don't think it's been through a final meeting. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer it directly, but I don't feel envious of the person having to make that decision, because it's going to be like a honeymoon. Everyone's going to go and have a look. I know you go up a different level once you get over 500 participants. You go to the next stage with COVID, and that's the big one. Once you go over 500 people.
Yeah. No, very interesting summary of
very good.
That.
Thank you.
I just want to highlight that at yesterday's district disaster management meeting, acting inspector, is it? Peter Williamson has called on leaders in the community to set an example with COVID. Apathy has crept in, and any media stuff that happens, he's really appealing to us to make sure the 1.5 metre applies, and council needs to set an example with how we manage the opening of the grandstand in terms of letting the public in there. It's not the official opening. We want to make sure that we're leading by example, and as he said yesterday, if it's 600, divide it by 2, that's how many can go in there under the law. So we need to be very careful how we manage it. Any further questions for Mr. Fisher? Councillor.
Sorry, no, not a question through you, Mr. Chair. Probably more a comment again around rugby league and football. So, Mr. Mayor, I know the councillors are very excited about being intended at some of these games. So, I would probably suggest I may be cautioned around wearing a Leprechauns jersey or a sky blue jersey. It might get me precluded at the gate, and I wouldn't get in the gate at all. So I'll be very cautious of being supportive on the day of the local community.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Mr. Blue Eyes. Are there any further questions for Mr. Fisher? Somebody moved the recommendation. Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Item 7.2, the Bulgan Reservoir contract. And Mr. Goodman's going to present this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, before I start on that, I just provide a little additional information on the topic that was just being discussed, and certainly we know the amount of work that's required to run an event, the amount of additional work that's required to run an event with these COVID safe procedures, and it is a Tully Rugby League event that's proposed next Saturday, so they will be responsible for the having their own COVID safe plan and developing that. but certainly the council team has been providing some assistance and guidance in there, and we're certainly very keen to see that first event run at the new facility a success. So we're the teams has been in contact with Tully Rugby League to provide assistance, and certainly we hope it's a success as well. So I'll move on to the agenda item 7.2, and councillors, unfortunately this is the second time I've got to apologise on this similar report where we haven't updated an old version, so it is certainly not the February 2020 status update. It is, that's in the title of the agenda, it is the July status, July 2020 status update, so apologies for that, and I have reminded my team to pick up their performance in that aspect, and but take some responsibility for myself because I approved the report. Councillors, you have visited the site up there in recent times on Division 2 tour, so you'll be well acquainted with the site and the progress that's being made. The project is on track for September completion. You could see from the photos, page 132 to 133, that is essentially the status of the project when you visited the site. The roof is now under construction. The project continues to go well. Forecasting total project expenditure at now at 3.2 million. Which is slightly above the original budget, but with some of the issues that were encountered on the site, particularly with a large rock at the start of it, I think that's a reasonable effort. I don't have any significant additional information to provide on this report, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Goodman? Anybody want to comment about the visit to the site and how spectacular this piece of infrastructure is? And let's not forget, a lot of money's been put into it, but it's all about getting rid of those boil water alerts and not being described as third world class standard. That's what we've got to get rid of. We've got to get our potable water up to the standard that the state government have required now. They've changed the guidelines, and we're trying to meet that and spend a lot of money. So it's a great outcome, and in a very difficult terrain. Very difficult with all the big rocks that had to be removed, etc. It's a great outcome. No questions for Mr. Goodman?
No, well, through you, Mr. Chair, further to that, I would concur with your statements and support them. It's a great project. I was absolutely amazed. I didn't really picture this sort of reservoir in place when we went through the original discussions, but I will say, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all the councillors, but I know I personally was just very impressed by the work that's been done up there. I'm still really disappointed I didn't get to be there when the rock was blown up, but that's workplace health and safety issues. So, but it is great work, so I support your comments, Mr. Mayor.
Any Councillor Barnes?
I'd just like to comment what a great job the officers have done. I couldn't believe the quality of the usage of the material, all stainless, and I couldn't believe the size of it, 4.5 million litres. It's so good. If you're going to do a job, do it right, and I think that's been achieved. Thanks.
Any further comments, councillors? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 7.3, Infrastructure Services Report. Mr. Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this is the Infrastructure Services Capital Report for July 2020. Councillors, you will note that there are a lot of projects that are identified in there with TBA. I don't know if we've explained that previously. That's to be advised, and we're continuing to work through with our programming of how and when all these individual capital projects will be delivered, and I can provide an undertaking that there'll be very much reduced numbers of TBAs in next report. So there is not a huge amount of to report on in terms of what has been delivered within the capital report as in completed for July, but the structure of the report is there that you can see the projects that we are planning on to deliver within the next 12 months.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Any questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Tui, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move into 8, Planning and Regional Development. I just want to highlight in 10 minutes we're going to have a break under COVID. There is a requirement, and we'll do 8.1 and see where we sit then. Welcome, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council.
Mr. Thomas.
Through the Chair, Council is in receipt of a development application for a material change of use for a service station, diesel fuel stop within the rural zone, situated at Lentini Road, Silky Oak. The proposed service station incorporates a self-funded above-ground fuel tank and will operate as an unmanned cashless point of sale. Fuel pumps will be accessible to pre-approved IOR petroleum customers only, with the customer base consisting of commercial heavy vehicle users. As a result, the facility will not be patronised with light vehicle traffic from the general public. The service station will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is consistent to the unmanned cashless business model operating at various locations throughout Australia. The proposed fuel stop is located to the west of an existing light industrial use on site and includes dual fuel dispensers located to the western and eastern sides of the tank. The fuel tank is located perpendicular to the fill point forecourt, with the dispenser points situated centrally. A canopy encompasses the full extent of the forecourt, providing cover to the refuelling area. IOR petroleum customers enter the service station, traverse the western side of the internal access, and approach the fuel pump from the south, noting only 2 vehicles can refuel at any one time. Following completion of the fueling process, patrons leave via the loop driveway. An amenities block is provided adjacent to the fill point forecourt to the east, providing restroom facilities for fuel stop patrons. The facility will incorporate suitable signage and lighting to enable appropriate wayfinding and safety for patrons. Approximately 70% of the subject site is utilised for agricultural production of sugarcane, existing use rights for an alternative industrial use, and the proposal will be situated within close proximity to the north of the site. The proposed location has not historically been utilised for agricultural production, and the new use will have no impact on the future viability of the land. The consolidation of the industrial uses to the northern part of the site and agricultural production to the south ensure that the uses will be clearly separated. The proposed development promotes the existing dominant agricultural industry of the Cassowary Coast region, as well as providing alternative sectors. The application was impact accessible, therefore public notification was required to be carried out. Council received no properly made submissions. The application is generally consistent with the provisions of the Cassowary Coast Regional Council Planning Scheme, and therefore the application for a material change of use for a service station, diesel fuel stop, is recommended for approval subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. Happy to answer any questions of Council.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any questions, councillors, for Mr. Thomas on that report? Councillor Barnes.
All right, so through you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so this material change of use, this has been a long time coming. So there's no possible way that this can be used until all these are in place. Like we can't, I know you need bitumen, you know you need pipes, and I know you need a roof. What's the requirement of the roof over a tank like this? Like there's 500 or 600 of these throughout Australia, and I think this may be the only one required to have a roof. Would that be true, Dylan?
Through the Chair, to my knowledge, I'm unaware of other specific sites, whether they're roofed or not. The application that was received by Council had a roof proposed. With the application, it wasn't a request to Council following the submission of the application. following some pre-lodgement discussions with the consultant prior to the lodgement.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr Thomas? If not, somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Tui, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 8.2, development application, and this will be presented by Isabella Newman. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms Newman.
Through the Chair, Council is in receipt of an application for a material change of use for an undefined use for a short stay, fully self-contained RV park at 3 River Avenue, Miguel, known as Hadrill Park. The site is proposed to be managed by the Camper Van and Motorhome Club of Australia, or the CMCA, and utilised for RVs for a short time period only, being no more than 5 nights in a 21-day period. Unlike commercial caravan parks, the proposed use will not supply facilities such as amenities, blocks, washing machines and showers. Additionally, it will not provide facilities for families such as pools, tennis courts, kids entertainment or cabins. A strict policy under the CMCA will ensure that vehicles using the site are fully self-contained and self-serviced. The application was impact accessible and therefore public notification was required. 5 properly made submissions were received by Council, and the issues raised in those submissions are addressed in the assessment report. The proposal is for low impact infrastructure only. The site will contain a dump point, a slab for a caretaker's caravan, and an open shelter shed. The application triggered referral to the State Assessment and Referral Agency, who conditioned a sealed left-in, left-out access with treatment works for an auxiliary left turn. The proposal will provide economic benefit to Innisfail and the wider Cassowary Coast region. It's considered that the RV park will be complementary to a number of surrounding land uses, including the Innisfail Conservatorium, Reef's Restaurant at the Barrier Reef Motel, the immediately adjacent itinerant vendors, and the Innisfail CBD, by potentially increasing patronage to these locations. The proposed location of the RV park allows for patrons to use the walking and cycle networks that adjoin the site for exercise and for access to the Innisfail CBD, which is less than a 10-minute walk away. The proposal will provide a destination for RV travellers to stock up on essentials and discover what the town of Innisfail has to offer while travelling. The CMCA works with Council to develop a tourism sign for the park, which is installed under the, they call it the Happy Hour shelter, and provides park guests with the top things to do and see whilst in Innisfail and the Cassowary Coast, and gives local businesses an opportunity to promote their goods and services to the guests also. The CMCA RV park will target those travellers who are currently bypassing Innisfail or stopping at the Innisfail Driver Reviver. Therefore, it's not considered that it will have a detrimental impact on commercial tourist parks in the region, given it's not offering any facilities, is only for fully self-contained vehicles. The application is generally consistent with the requirements of the planning scheme and does not raise any significant issues that cannot be addressed by conditions. Therefore, it is recommended for approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Tui.
Thank you. Through the Chair, just regarding the caretaker, who appoints the caretaker? Is it the association or the council?
Through the Chair, the caretaker is a CMCA volunteer, and they appoint the caretaker, who can be there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, depending on everyone's, but depending on their travel plans.
Any further questions for the officer? I just want to share a little bit of history about the journey that's taken to get this good result today when we adopt the recommendation. 10 years ago in this chamber, Councillor Carmel Silvestro moved a motion that we allow RVs into the Tully Showground. It was a unanimous vote. There was no backlash from any member of the public. No caravan park managers complained. And it's been a great outcome for the town of Tully. Councillor Millwood highlighted today she'd like to see their stay extended because the business owners do benefit, and it's a great opportunity to capture the baby boomers. A lot more people are buying RVs. It's a growth industry. Up the coast in Innisfail, we have struggled to get any sort of RV facility. We did have a proposal to allow them into Peace Park. We were challenged under the national competition policy that if we progressed with that proposal, it would end up in court. So 10 years on, here we are now with Hadrill Park ready to get the green light. And council's not in competition. There'll be no challenge under national competition policy because it's going to be run by CMCA. So another reason why it's taken a little bit longer, there was a court case in Rockhampton, and our staff applied due diligence and said, we need to step back for a period. What's the outcome of the court case? And the outcome was that the caravan park owners won that case, and the council were found to not have followed proper process. So our planning staff have put many, many hours into getting this right. We've made sure that we've got the land management plan, etc. The negotiations with Main Road, because it is on a busy thoroughfare near the Scullen Avenue turnoff, and we've made sure that all those provisions for safety for the vehicles turning in and turning out are not going to be impacted with traffic accidents. So I just want to congratulate our planning staff. It was a tough journey, court cases involved, and we had to sit back and watch the outcomes there. And I know the CEO was very cautious about putting our council in a position where we could end up in court, and he blew the whistle and said, we've got to pull back and wait and see what the outcome is, learn from the mistakes that they made further south at Rockhampton, and make sure we get it right up here. So, yeah, just want to compliment our staff in getting this to a position today. In terms of the RV traffic, Mark Evans, the owner of Paranilla Park, done a presentation up in the Shire Hall 2 years ago, and at that time he was getting 45,000 RVs to Paranilla Park a year. Think about the flow onto our economy now that we've got somewhere for them to stop in Innisfail. And we're missing out on that at the moment. We had a reputation of being anti-RV. Tully was the opposite. Tully was very positive. But Innisfail, we were seen as anti-RV, no welcome mat, and now we're going to have an opportunity for the baby boomers to stop in our community, spend their money. The other thing I would like to encourage CMCA to do, and they do this in a lot of RV facilities, is put in a receipt box so you can measure the benefit to your economy. If they've gone and got a haircut, a hamburger, fuel, battery, tyres, when they're in the facility, put the receipt in the box, and then our staff, Richard Blanchett and company, can measure the benefit to the economy, and in a monthly report keep us informed about how productive the Tully Caravan Park RV Park is, and the one at Hadrill Park. Councillor Millwood.
Yes, through the chair. That little project actually was done out at, I think it was Collinsville, when they did their RV stop, and it came in excess of $100,000 that they had spent within a 12-month period. So It really is a benefit, and I think the longer we keep them here, you can let them stay a few more days and you get that few more dollars before they go.
Yeah, very good point. COVID has got the Queensland bubble in front of us now, a great opportunity, and that's another area where we need to be flexible, and the CEO has taken on board your request today about extending the hours at the Tully Showground.
Also, I noticed with the new Silkwood Bakery there, I've noticed on my way to work in the mornings how many RVs are actually pulled up there and going into that little bakery, whereas I don't think I've ever seen any of them there before. So, I would like to lobby to state government about that road too, because it's the cane cut away, needs a little bit of TLC. But anyway, yeah, it's great to see.
Well, can I suggest after the meeting have a talk to the CEO and possibly get one of our officers to word something for the next meeting and have it on the agenda, because you're right, Mark Evans has been lobbying for an upgrade to cane cut away as well. Visitors to Paranilla Park complain about the standard of the road, and it's not a good message for us. Council gets blamed for it on a lot of occasions when the potholes appear. I know I looked after that division. Councillor Pervin's got it now, and they're always ringing up about the potholes. Well, it's not our road, it's main roads, and we need to be lobbying them for stimulus funding. There's going to be plenty of it, COVID recovery time. State and federal government are going to be trying to create jobs, and that would be a great project to put on our agenda in terms of what we'd like to see on our wish list. Yeah. You want to make any comment, Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll be delighted to work with infrastructure services and delivery services to put forward a proposition for council.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
One last one with you, Mr. Bear, probably further to the history. It was great bringing up the history. It's been a very, very long journey. I know council had its hands on some RV-friendly signage, and there were investigations at the time. Maybe that's a great opportunity for us under the wayfinding strategy that we reinvigorate the RV-friendly town signage proposal and get them back up, and again welcome all these people that are coming here and spending money in our region.
Thanks for that, Councillor Baines. Any further comments, councillors? Somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Councillors, as I flagged earlier, we need to have a 10-minute break. COVID restrictions require us to exit the chamber for a short period. So see you back here at 11:15. Okay, councillors, we'll resume the meeting, and item 8.3, application to purchase state land, and Mr Jones will present this report. Councillor Millwood.
I'd just like to remind you that this was the item that I declared a perceived conflict of interest, and I would like to say that I don't feel that this would influence any decisions to be made, but I'd like to leave that up to the councillors to decide.
Okay, fellow councillors, how do you feel about the perceived conflict of interest? Councillor Millwood explained the background earlier, what relationship there was with the applicant, and Mr CEO, would you like to make a call on this one, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr Chairman. It's now before the non-conflicted councillors to determine whether or not they're happy for Councillor Millwood to stay in the room to participate in the discussion and to vote on the matter. So Councillor Millwood can't vote on that resolution, but it's for the other 6 to determine.
Yeah, how do you feel, councillors? Personally, I thought the background briefing that she supplied earlier in the meeting didn't jump up at me and say that's definitely a conflict, and I'm comfortable with Councillor Millwood to stay in the chamber. Everybody agree? Do we need a resolution to that effect? Will somebody move on that? Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Pavan. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Mr Jones.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Council is in receipt of further correspondence requesting Council's amended views and or requirements in relation to an application to purchase state land, being Lot 15 on Plan USL 42297. The applicant is Tully Welding Works, and the land relates to the rear of the existing Tully Welding Works site. On March 2020, Council advised the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy that it objected to the purchase of state land. On the 13th of July, Council received further representations on the matter from the applicant's consultant, and this included information from the Department of Transport and Main Roads regarding the proposed future bypass and access arrangements in the vicinity of the site. In light of the additional information provided, it is recommended that Council provide an amended view and requirements in relation to an application to purchase state land. Council, the amended views and requirements related to the proposed Tully bypass alignment. The Department of Transport and Main Roads viewed that current alignment as being unsuitable for a number of different reasons. They provided correspondence in that matter. They're currently reviewing the alignment, and further planning will take place at that time. Therefore, planning staff felt that given the fact that they're reviewing that alignment, there was no need to object to the current application before us from Tully Welding Works for the purchase of that land. So Council, the recommendation is that after an assessment of the additional information supplied by the applicant, the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy be advised that Council has no objection to the application to purchase state land, being Lot 15 on Plan USL 42297, subject to the following conditions. Easement must be registered over the site in favour of Council for existing sewage infrastructure for maintenance and access purposes. The easements are to be a minimum of width of 6 metres wide for the trunk sewer rising main from Mission Beach and a minimum width of 3 metres wide from the other rising main. And the purchaser is responsible for undertaking the survey to locate existing sewage infrastructure relative to the property boundaries. Council, this ensures that we'll be able to get in and we'll be able to maintain our infrastructure which is currently located within that parcel of land. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the officer on this recommendation? Councillor Baines.
But probably just one, and I mean, I'm very supportive of all government departments, but there's no risk DTMR will come back and change their mind again. We don't know, or
through the chair, Councillor Baines, I wouldn't think so. They're currently reviewing an alignment which is to the east. Our planning scheme and also the growth of Tully over that period of time, that alignment's been around for a fair bit. There wouldn't be much point in putting the alignment where it currently is, as we've already got essentially a bypass of Tully there at the moment, and to move it a couple of probably 100 metres over wouldn't be cost effective at all. So,
any further questions, councillors? If not, would somebody move the recommendation? Councillor Farinelli moved, seconded by Councillor Purban. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Jones. We now move on to item 8.4. Delegation report, and this will be delivered by Mr Horton. Welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Morning,
Horton.
Council. Morning, community. Hope everyone's well. First of all, delegations report, Council, for the period of July. Some very, very good signs from the graphs that are shown for this month. Overall, 26 planning applications were approved for the month, well above last year's total of 11. So that's shown there on page 306, Council. So very, very busy month with those types of applications coming in. Council, the dwelling dollar figure for the month was...
Dan, microphone.
It's not on. I thought it was on. Sorry. The dollar figure is just over 2 million in housing approvals for dwellings and 8 dwellings for the month. So up from 4 last month to 8 this month. So hopefully we can see a little bit of that first home buyers grant and a bit of confidence in the market and in moving forward. So hopefully over the next month we get a few more figures there, Council. Overall total for the calendar year to June, end of July, over nearly $18 million worth of work, and just over $8.5 million in dwelling approval total figures. So 49 approvals for the whole month under building statistics, Council, and we're looking at overall of 250 we've done approvals till July and 39 for dwellings. So Council, all the figures are there. It's looking positive. I'm really pleased with where we're at. You know, on page 315, Council, we've got 250 approvals. Last year we were at 211 for building. So we're proceeding, and hopefully, yeah, I'd like to see us break over the 500 for approvals this year. We were just under those totals the last couple of years, but we're tracking nicely, Mr. Mayor. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that stat report.
Councillors, any questions for Mr. Horton? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Farinelli, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I believe Mr. Horton wants to also take a bit of time to share a bit of recent history.
I just, Council, you know, I was just looking at our live feed today and we're talking about the Tully Grandstand. I thought I'd go back and have a bit of a gander at where we started. This month is 3 years from when we first started this project. I found the original plans of the Tully Showground, of the Tully Grandstand that me and Byron drew back in August 3 years ago. No funding, no budget, no nothing at that time. So that's the journey of where we're at to having a rugby league game next week. It's very proud of where we've come as an organisation overall and what we've delivered, and we even had on here 619 seats, so we're pretty close to what we've ended up with.
Well done.
So I thought we'd just sort of add that to Council on how long it sort of takes for one of these projects to get off the ground and go through consultation, grant funding, work with all the teams, especially David and Justin and those guys. So it's been a pleasure to see, and I hope the community enjoys it. I hope they do, and I know I will. Yeah, so it's a great project. The other thing is, I'm disappointed to say that Isabella Newman will be leaving CCRC. She is moving on to Cairns City. She's taken up a position there as a senior planner. For her contribution to this organisation, I greatly appreciate what she's done. Coming from a student planner all the way through from a graduate to a planning officer to a senior planner. The work that was done around Art Deco, our planning scheme, and the numerous reports that have been approved and done, you know, to name a couple as Castaways, the Ella Bay Resort approvals, very large approvals in the gist of what we deal with day to day. Look, I wish her all the best on behalf of this council, and I'm glad that I had the privilege of working with such a lovely young lady, and I will miss her, and I wish her the best.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I'd just like to commend our planning department for helping Isabella to get to where she is today. And yeah, I think that they need to take a little bit of that on their own pride that they've helped Isabella to get to where she is, and good luck.
Thanks for that, Councillor Millwood. Any further comments? No? Okay. We'll move on to general business. Any general business, councillors? Councillor Chewy.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The other day I had the pleasure of meeting with Trish Ernst, who's the president of the Innisfail Historical Society, and through that meeting we discussed the possibility of to see, as councillors say, if there's an appetite for a history group forming in Mission Beach. So I invite members of the public on Monday, August the 24th at the Mission Beach Progress Hall at 3 p.m. There's a lot of local history at Mission Beach. There's a lot of people that have lived there for a very, very long time, and we'd like you to come along and just to have a discussion to see if there's interest in forming some sort of history group to go forward. Ms Ernst is also going to read from the Peter Kellett collection. He worked tirelessly to create a history of Mission Beach, and we're trying to get that through a grant, get that published and go forward with that. So, yes, August the 24th, Monday at 3 o'clock at the Mission Beach Progress Hall for those that are interested in the history of Mission Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Any further general business? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had officers meeting at lunchtime today with members of the World Rafting Committee that are in town. I just thought I'd pass that on to fellow councillors. Also, our region is currently in the middle of a cool burn program. The Mayor and I learnt yesterday in a meeting. This is a great event. It saves our fauna and flora. I wish some of the other states would take some of this on board and burn at the appropriate times of the year to get rid of the fuel load. And also any councillors who have ratepayers who have a load, have a block that needs burning, please put them on to their local fire warden and encourage them to take advantage of this great weather. Also, we went through the grading program of our unsurfaced roads yesterday, and it's lovely to see that our roads program is 3 or 4 days ahead of schedule in a lot of places, and credit must go to those involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Any further general business? Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a petition that I would like to table, Mr. Chair. Petition has been tabled previously. I understand we can't speak to that with COVID, and it was the election in place. I'd just like to retable this position and put it in the hands of the CEO.
Yep. Thank you for that, Councillor Baines.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the petition, excuse me, the principal petitioner is Mary and Manuel Balzan, and the petition summary and background is as follows. The Innisfail Estate Dalrymple Park walking path extending in front of houses adjacent to Riverside Crescent oblique Dalrymple Esplanade is a popular morning and afternoon walking choice for a large number of residents. Recent misadventures by local residents and walkway users highlight the need to improve the condition of the alignment of this walkway. One, the walkway itself is extremely deteriorated, has heavy decay and so on. Two, the gutter associated with the walkway is in a similar poor condition. Three, separate to the condition of the walkway but a critical concern is the proximity of the walkway to their properties and so on. So the action petitioned for is one, to upgrade the Innisfail Estate Dalrymple Park walking path to a safe, gutter-free, slip-free design. Two, design the walkway to allow easy mowing either side of the walkway. Reposition the walkway in alignment further away from the resident properties than current.
Thank you, Mr. Gott. That petition has now been tabled, and the CEO will process that through our engineering department. They'll do an asset study, and normally it's either 1 to up to 5, and that tells you how bad a condition it really is in, and it'll be assessed against other projects that also need upgrade, and then CEO will bring it back as a recommendation in the future.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know if I can speak to that any further. May I, Mr. CEO? I shall not. But...
Are there any further general business items, councillors? I have two here in terms of general information. The Deputy Mayor and I attended the local disaster management group meeting yesterday, then the district disaster management group. Superintendent Williamson has asked people in the media to be careful about the example you set with social distancing. And to that end, I had a chat with the CEO and said, is it time that we put out something about the leadership that we are showing in trying to contain COVID-19, and something has been prepared here, which I'll share with you. During these trying times, the social well-being of the community is at the forefront of our minds. Council will always promote the health, safety and well-being of the Cassowary Coast community. I want to congratulate regional residents on their efforts in containing the COVID-19 virus. Easing restrictions have provided a small measure of relief. However, it is not time to be complacent. We must remain vigilant, continue social distancing and hygiene practices, and work together to ensure our community remains free of the virus. Stay home if you are sick. No matter how mild your symptoms are, you should still make arrangements to be tested. I cannot stress enough the value of receiving the influenza vaccine. The Cairns and Hinterland Hospital and Health Service have opened a drive-through fever clinic at Innisfail Hospital and to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Anyone with cold or flu symptoms should get tested. In the meantime, please reach out and keep connected to others in the community. Stay well, stay safe, and take time to keep well informed on the latest updates on the Queensland Health. The next statement is in relation to work our comms department have been doing, and it relates to our first 100 days in office. Statement in relation to the 100-day milestone snapshot. My fellow councillors and I recently reached a significant milestone, the first 100 days in office. Since the swearing-in ceremony on April the 23rd, Council has made strides towards many goals, including improving efficiency and creating savings for ratepayers, innovation and adaptability, investing in our youth and future workforce requirements, and ensuring a focus on safety. To commemorate this milestone, we have prepared a snapshot of the first 100 days, dealing some of the exciting achievements and initiatives of this council had in hand in identifying, setting in motion and bringing to fruition. Some of my favourites from the list include the funding and completion of the Innisfail State College drop and go facility, which was a public safety issue. The Go Local, Grow Local campaign launched to support businesses and community organisations in recovering from COVID-19. Council helped to clear 1.34 tonnes of rubbish as part of the Cowley Beach Cleanup Initiative. The list will be unveiled via our council's social media over the next few days and will be later be available in full on the website. I'll table that for the minutes. Okay, are there any further general business items? Councillor Baines?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, one more that I probably should have mentioned. This Saturday is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, Victory in the Pacific Day. Council has been involved in working with community. There's a bell ringing initiative. So at midday on Saturday, the Catholic Church bells in Innisfail will be rung for 2 minutes. So I'd just like to just remind everyone that, you know, our region was very, very heavily involved during the Second World War. The Mayor and myself will be in attendance at a ceremony up at Rocky Creek. But if everyone just, when you hear the bells, please take some time. Anyone in the region, I'm understanding there's more people cooperating and getting on board, so take a couple of minutes to think about the people that have been involved in all our wars, but this one is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II specifically.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, there's also a celebration on Tuesday at Mission Beach at 10 a.m. at the cenotaph at Mission Beach.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Millwood. Any further comments, councillors, in general business? If not, that's the close of the first part of the meeting, and we now move into committee for confidential. Okay, councillors, we go back into the meeting and item 10.1, the management services contract at the Mission Beach Aquatic Centre, and Mr McBride will present this report. Welcome, Mr McBride. Afternoon, mate.
Just background. Purpose of this report is just to get council to note the award of the management. Apologies. Purpose of this report is to get council to note the award of the management services contract at the Mission Beach Aquatic Centre. Council went to public tender on the 6th of June 2020. Tender closed 8th of July 2020. Council received 4 conforming tenders. The tenders were assessed by a number of qualitative and quantitative criteria. The evaluation panel sat and assessed all the submissions. The outcome of that was Grimsby Aquatic Centre was awarded that contract, scored highest across all those fields, and subsequently, Director of Infrastructure Services considered the recommendation of the assessment panel and awarded the tender utilising his delegated authority. And as I said, the report just gets council to note the decision there by the Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thank you, Mr McBride. Any questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.2, outstanding rates and charges. Mr Singh will present.
Good afternoon all.
Afternoon.
Councillors, the first report is Council's outstanding rates and charges. In terms of the report itself, councillors, we have it provides the status of where most of our rates are as at 30th of June 2020. Councillors, the report's pretty self-explanatory, and if there's any questions, happy to take questions.
Any questions for Mr Singh? If not, Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 10.3, outstanding sundry debtors, and Mr Singh.
Councillors, again, similar to the previous report, this report provides our status for our sundry debtors as at 30th of June 2020. Again, the intention here is to keep council up to date with all our outstanding rates and also debtors, particularly in the current COVID environment. So happy to take any questions, councillors.
Any questions for Mr Singh? If not, moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors.
Thanks, Mr Singh. We move on to item 10.4. Councillor Farinelli is leaving the room due to her declared material conflict of interest. Over to Mr Sanders.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
The purpose of this report is to award contracts in relation to the 2019 Reaper Road repairs contracts with QRA. Through the Queensland Reconstruction Authority, Council have secured $5.63 million of restoration of essential public assets funding. In this round of Reaper Roadworks, Council had a total of 7 packages that contractors were invited to tender on for the 2019 program. 8 contractors tendered in total, which each package receiving a number of submissions, and it is the recommendation as per within the report.
Thank you, Mr Sanders. Any questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Move.
I move that the recommendation be rejected so far as for the savings of 100 to IMAC instead of Cheshire.
Michael's.
I'd like to move the recommendation that the recommendation be rejected insofar as for the savings of approximately $120,000 by awarding the tenders 000-100 to IMAC instead of Cheshire. In my view, the capabilities of IMAC are sufficient. I move that the tender numbers 0097, 0098, 0099, 00101, 00103 and 00104 be awarded, but amend tender number 00100 be awarded to IMEC.
You second that? Okay. Any further comment, councillors? Okay. We'll vote on that recommendation from Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Against? That's defeated 4-2. We go back to the original recommendation. Would somebody move the original recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? That's carried 4-2. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Sanders. We move on to item 10.5. And Councillor Millwood's point that it be noted that Councillor Pervin and Councillor Millwood voted against that recommendation. That's been recorded, Councillor Millwood. Item 10.5, we've had a discussion with our officers and there is some information gap for councillors on this pretty big contract, and we decided that it would be safer to defer and go to a workshop. Would somebody move accordingly for deferral, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Farinelli. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And item 10.6, the Upper Darragey realignment. Mr. Fisher will talk to this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the Chair, Council, this report relates to the Upper Darragey Road realignment. As many of you are aware, the road has been undermining there with the riverbank of the Johnson River. Council conducted a multi-criteria analysis to determine the most beneficial approach to realign the road and provide a protected and secure transport link that meets the current design standards. We have been working with 4 affected property owners, 3 of which have agreed to the process for Council to acquire the land for road purposes. We have, however, received an objection from one owner, Mr. Michael Treston. We have been through a process there, including an objection hearing and providing an objection report to Mr. Treston. We have not had a response from Mr. Treston as a result of our objection report being provided to them. So my recommendation is that is before you and recommend that we proceed with acquisition of that land for road purposes.
Any questions for Mr. Fisher? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Pervin, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors and staff, that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.